Hello. Check, check.
All right, you got me.
Hey, how we doing, Craig?
Let's try that again. Can you hear me?
I can.
Fantastic. Good deal. How
Cool.
are you today?
I'm doing well. About yourself?
I am good.
All
Well,
right.
good, but I'm well. That's a better way to say it. So,
There you go.
tangled up
No,
here.
no judging here. Say it the way you want to say it.
Hey, man.
You do live in the South, so you're going to say it a little different than people where I live anyway, so I'm used to
Where are you at?
that. I'm in Illinois now. I actually pastored in Georgia for 12 years, just
What
prior to
part?
coming to here.
What part?
I was in Dublin, Georgia, right in the middle.
Okay. Good deal.
Yeah. Yeah. I-16 basically runs in between Savannah and Macon.
Mm-hmm.
And so we were right smack dab in the middle.
Gotcha. Cool deal.
Yeah. Below the gnat line. So,
Listen, we flirt with the gnat line where I am, and man, it's awful. I mean, that's one of those things that, dude, you get into that, like my my nerves can't take it. I mean, it just my glasses. I've been monkeying with these uh different headphones, so if we start having issues with them, I will switch to my others
okay.
midstream. So
Yeah. That's one thing that I have not, I haven't delved into as far as the wireless. I just, I don't know. I did when I first started podcasting. And then I fell out of trust with them. I know the quality's better now than the ones that I had, but just made me a little nervous. So I'm
yeah,
still
truthfully, so we had an extra set laying here around the church, and they're I keep trying to love them, and but as you can see, these are still plugged up. So
right, right.
I
When in doubt.
yeah, with this book release, I've been doing a lot. I don't do much video when I can
Mm.
help it. I mean, I don't record video, and so like, I got this big giant window behind me that really gets in the way of a lot of things. But so anyway, with the book release, I have been doing a lot more videos, so I've been trying to love these, but they've let me down a few times. So
Well, that happens.
yeah.
Love it.
So give me your name.
Yeah, my name is Chad Zook. So this is it's going to be actually I'm going to drop this twice. Your publicist, whoever your publicist, I'm assuming it's just a publicist from your
Yeah.
book release. She pitched this to me. The podcast that I run is called the Exceptional Man Podcast, but I will also drop this on our local podcast for the church that I pastor. After going through the book, I think it would be a great resource, not only for my local church, but also for all of the podcasting community who will connect with this with
Thanks, man.
the men in the area. So,
Yeah. Tell me about
um,
your church.
yeah, so church I pastor is in rural Illinois. It's close to Springfield, city of about, I don't know, 11,000. Um, Calvary Baptist Church is it's not an SBC church, it's an independent Baptist church, but independent, but not fundamental. So
Oh, come on, let it be the fun one.
I know we don't take, they took the fun out of it.
Right.
So,
No doubt.
uh,
A lot of fun. No,
you know
a lot of
that
fun at camp and
pastorally.
very little mental. Yeah.
Right,
Always
right,
in
right, right.
my joke. So,
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, you get that. So, yeah,
yeah.
that is the location that I serve. So been here just shy of 4 years.
Okay.
Been in the men's ministry space for longer than I've been in vocational ministry. Been in vocational ministry for 20. Been
Okay.
in the men's ministry space for probably closer to 25.
Okay. Good
So
deal.
yeah. What about yourself?
Where you from originally?
I'm actually originally from this city.
Okay.
Ironically enough, it's crazy. Just
Thought you had
God's
one of those
story took
northern
us
Midwestern accents. So,
right. Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, it took us out of here, graduated high school in this city, went to the Navy for 4 years, came back here, got a 4 year degree to work on airplanes, got called out of that,
Mm.
went and spent 5 years in Florida on a ministry team, 12 years pastoring in Georgia, and then almost 4 years here. So yeah,
Hmm.
we're 20 deep in vocational ministry.
Gotcha. Yeah. Vocational ministry is kind of all I'm good at, so we hope it works out. I've been doing that since I was 19 years old. I'm 44 now, so 25 years in. A
Nice.
lot older than I am, but the beard kind of adds some age. But yeah, so I actually grew up in South Carolina, in the Spartanburg area, which is
Yep.
outside of Greenville, if that helps you. And
Yeah.
my wife's from up that way as well. And um, moved here to Camden, where I am. I pastor Malvern Hill Baptist Church. Camden is it's on I-20, so
Okay.
just outside of Columbia. We're a small city, so just to kind of give you an idea, we're a really large church for our community. We're like large church in the county. We run about 500 on Sunday morning, so that kind of gives you
Nice.
an idea about the size of our community. Not very large at all. The church is awesome. It's a fun place to be. A lot of kids, a lot of young adults, and so I'm really grateful to be here. Been here for 18 and a half years, and
Well,
four kids, one wife, two dogs. Um, so yeah, that's kind of. I actually have a podcast as well, and really aiming towards men. So the book was written with men in mind. It's obviously Lord willing, it ministers to men and women, but men aren't readers the way that I wish they were. So we tried to write it, and I tried to write it in such a way that we could engage men. Shorter chapters and lots of
I could tell.
things like
I
that.
could tell that you were you. I could tell you were serving both audiences, but if I were going to give a percentile, I'm not a mathematician, but I would say definitely 70, 80% of it, I would say would be more thinking about men, but then also allowing for, women to gain value from it as well.
Well, and what I find is that if I can reach men, it's relatively easy to pull women into men's spaces. It's nearly impossible to pull men into women's spaces, and so it's even from ministry and ministry perspective, we try to lean a little bit masculine in everything that we do. We don't want to be, you know, super alpha, but if we were putting it on a sliding scale, we want to be 60-40, at least, because again, we find that women are thrilled to death to follow men and to be around men worshiping and all those other things. But if we make it feminine, then dudes are not usually as eager to be there. So that's kind of where we are. My personal ministry outside the church, or alongside the church, is called Ordinary Christian Ministries, and it's just that's the we're launching, really trying to launch a publishing platform to go along with that, and the idea behind it is that there's a whole lot of pastors like me, and that's fantastic. But the world's really going to be changed by ordinary people doing extraordinary things in
Hmm.
ordinary ways. So it's amazing how ordinary acts of discipleship seem and tend to have extraordinary impacts on the world. So that's kind of
Yeah.
where we are. That's me. I'm an open book. So anything else you want to know?
Oh, I don't think so. I
Okay.
mean, we'll roll. I've got a kind of a idea. I do have your suggested interview questions. I may touch some of those,
Don't worry about
but
that. We didn't
but I
make.
typically I kind of like launch from that and then maybe have a couple touch points along the way, a couple
Throw
quotes
me a
from the
curveball.
book.
Let's make it enjoyable. Hit me off guard.
Yeah, yeah. Well, I typically do.
Good.
I
Awesome.
typically do. We'll see what the Lord
Are
has
you
for us.
recording video and audio, or just video, or just
Ye-
audio?
I've got both.
Okay, I'm gonna go
Yeah,
move that backpack out of the background there. Then just maybe help you a little bit. I don't even know if you can see it, but I'm gonna just go
I
move that.
can. I wouldn't even worry about it though. Really, I'm not sweating it.
All right, I'm ready when you are, brother.
Okay.
How long are we
Well,
gonna go?
I've got it set until 2,
Okay,
so if you're good with that.
I'm following your lead. I really appreciate you being willing to do this.
Yeah, absolutely. I enjoyed the book, and I know
Okay.
it's going to help a lot of people.
Man, I hope we can get the word out. So thank you for those words.
Yeah. Well, I'll give us a countdown: 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and then I'm going to hit record. I record in 2 different places, also through Zooms, what I capture the video through, but I've got my own soundboard and all that I'll be capturing separate. So 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Today on the podcast, I have Craig Thompson. Craig is a pastor, author, and podcaster of the Ordinary Christian podcast. I would make reference to that, but it's so ordinary that I don't even think that it's worth talking about. Just kidding, Craig. Just kidding. I know we talked about that and what the podcast is about. We'll probably touch on that in a little bit. But today, I want to talk about a book that I know is going to be helpful for everyone who listens to the show today. And the book is called Fighting for Your Family. I will say this, though, Craig. Fighting for your family, it's compelling, right? You're fighting for your family. But if you would have named it Fighting with Your Family, it probably would have been easier to write.
It would have been easier to write. It would have fit really in line with what most of our experiences are at times.
Exactly. No, but I did appreciate the book. I appreciated how it is written. It's written, just as we said off air, specifically for men, more leaning towards men, but definitely something that men or women, husbands and wives, can gain value from. Whether you are pursuing marriage, you are in the throes of marriage, or if you are, you're deep, deep, deep into marriage, whether you have kids or you don't have kids, I believe the book is going to be really helpful. And the content, hopefully, this conversation that we've dialed up will be great as well. Now, Craig, you've written a bunch of other books. You've been really involved in that. Obviously, you have a gift in writing. But I would just ask you this question: why this book and why now?
Um, Man, I don't know that there's a more pressing need in the American church today than for us to really dig in as followers of Christ within the context of our families. The family was the first institution created by God. I don't claim that it's the most important. The church is certainly an incredibly important institution. Jesus gives us the church as the instrument or to fulfill the Great Commission. But the very first institution that we have is the institution of the family. So
Mhm.
if we are going to be the people that God's called us to be as the church, making an impact in the world around us, it's going to require us to be the kind of family people. Paul goes so far as to say that marriage is a picture of Christ and his church. So we just have got to work diligently to love one another well, to honor God through those relationships, and in so doing, to witness to the world around us through loving marriages and loving families.
Yeah, amen. One of the things that I wanted us to kind of talk about today, and maybe this would be like a big envelope by which all of our conversation will be around. And this is a quote from your book that, again, is just so sticky. And I think that everyone would be better served if they understood simply this. And this is a quote from the book on page 97. It says, in your home, you get to create traditions, right? We all have traditions. We either eat at the kitchen table or we eat in front of the television watching reruns, or we eat at home or we eat out, or all kinds of traditions. We allow our kids to do this, or we don't have our kids participating in certain things. All of these become traditions. That I think most people grasp. But I think that there's a hidden gem that is right after that quote that I want to talk about with you today. And that's this. You said, but you must fight for your own culture. What did you mean when you said you have to fight for your own culture, especially within a home? Because I think when we think of culture, we think of American culture, we think of patriotism, we think of red, white, and blue, we think of in political means, we think of maybe sports, art, entertainment. But what do you mean there's a culture that we have to fight for within our home?
There's a culture within your family. Your family has a culture, and generally speaking, you can walk through the mall. That's I'm a good Gen X guy. I love the mall. You can walk through the mall. You go to Bass Pro Shop. You can go through church, and you'll find that family units tend to represent one another or resemble one another in a variety of ways. When I look at my family, the culture within my family, we like sports. We all work out to some degree. We kind of all dress similarly. There's just a lot of things that sort of happen within the culture and the context of your home. We get to set that. Now, if we're not careful, we allow sort of the world outside to set the culture, or more likely than not, we allow our family of origin to establish the culture
Mm,
for our family of or our current family setting. What we lose sight of sometimes is that I don't have to have the culture that is my family of origins culture. I don't have to have the culture within my home that's the culture of everybody around me. I can have a culture that I, along with my wife, choose to create for our family that honors the Lord, and that really represents the values that we hold dear. And allows us to be the kind of family that we want to be, and Lord willing, to create the kind of children that we hope to create with the culture of our family.
mm. Okay. Okay, so let's dig a little bit more into that. How would how would somebody just starting out? By the way, now I do have to make this reference because you did say Gen X, and I also am Gen X, and you referenced the mall. Now there's going to be some 25-year-old. They're like, "What's the mall?" I
Right.
get it, and
Yeah.
they're probably
Don't
you need to
be
stop
okay.
the
Yeah.
podcast right now, and you need to Google what is a mall, and I get that
Yeah. Just and go ride the escalator, eat some
exactly,
Sparrow pizza, and call me
exactly,
later. So,
exactly.
uh,
No, but
I'm
part
sorry,
of
you asked
that.
me a question. What was the question? I got lost in a moment. So,
I know, I know.
yeah, yeah,
No, so you know, you had said that about creating culture.
yeah.
How would a person create a culture if you're starting out, right? Like the
Right.
25-year-old. That's the reason why I talked about the 25-year-old. If you have a 25-year-old man, he's like, hey, he's just getting his life together, maybe establishing a relationship and pursuing marriage. Maybe he's just in the early years of marriage,
Yeah.
maybe even has a child, and he's like, culture. How do I do that?
If we run back to the book for a minute, if you allow me, the
Sure.
introduction to the book, I kind of give some background for how I arrived at where I did,
Hmm.
and the reason why this book's 20 years in the making, and it's 20 years in the making because Angela, that's my wife, Angela and I had what I can only really classify as really poor premarital counseling, and it wasn't bad because they were bad people. It just was. It lacked intentionality, and
Mm,
so I remember walking into the first session for with the guy who was going to be performing our ceremony, and he looked at me and Angela, and he says, "Hey, you're going to be a pastor," and he pointed at Angela because you grew up in the church, so y'all don't really need anything. Y'all got all this figured out. We're like, whoa, I don't have anything figured out, and
mm,
that sort of set the tone for what our premarital counseling was going to be for the next several sessions,
mm,
which meant we walked into marriage having been prepared with really good home lives, having been prepared because we grew up in the church, having been prepared because we spent time around a lot of other good couples, but having not really been prepared with somebody who held our hand and said, "Hey, this is what you should do." So, in other words, we had learned a lot by osmosis. And then we were really forced in the first couple of years of our marriage to determine what did we want to take that we had picked up from whether our own families or our own experiences and shape them and mold them and make them part of our own culture, and what do we want to get from other places and bring in, what did we want to jettison. So we
good questions.
yeah, yeah,
All of
yeah.
those are good questions.
Which means there we were at 26 years old doing exactly what you're asking me. What kind of culture are we going to create? How do we get there? And so we really began to look around and identify the people we wanted to be when we grew up. And we began to, go buy books and just work through those books and say, what's it look like to be the kind of family that we want to be? Because not just a couple. And this is what I would say to that 25-year-old. It's not just a couple. God's called you to be fruitful and multiply. That means you need to be open to children in your relationship. So
Mm,
the things that you do at 25 as a newly married couple for the next 6 or 8 months are going to set the pattern for what you're going to do at 28 and 30,
mm,
32, 35, and 40 when the children come along. And so I would encourage a couple of things when you're trying to find that culture. First of all, dig into God's word. Right. Practice your personal spiritual disciplines. Get plugged into a local church. I don't think there's anything you can do that will make you a better husband, father, wife, and mother than to attach yourself to a healthy local church where you can be
mm,
surrounded by other people who are seeking to do the same thing that you're doing at the same time and be around people who have done it a little bit ahead of you. So you've got mentors. So do those two things. And then third, honest and truly, I don't know that there's anything you could do in your home more important than just making it an intentional effort to eat dinner together as a
mm.
couple and as a family every single night when it's possible, without screens, without phones, without television, just to make sure that you're sitting down across the table as often as possible with the person that you're married to, and you're establishing a culture of communication and of attention with one another. And it's from those three things really that the rest of it's going to grow out. So, time in the Word of God and spiritual disciplines, time with your church family, and then regular time with one another, devoid of screens and distractions.
Mm. Yeah, and the third point there, it draws me to one of the things I really appreciate about the book is all of your practical practical applications at the end of each chapter.
Yeah.
Just kind of like, you just take some theory and be like, here's really what it looks like, or here's
Yeah.
what it could look like. And of course, using a lot of your examples. And specifically, you talk about messy kitchens, which I thought was a beautiful picture. And you talked in detail about, and I can't give all of the details, but you talked in detail about your kitchen table.
Yeah.
And you're talking about like if somebody were just come over and you look, you would not necessarily, not everybody sees all of the memories that are carved into and written into the dinner table. And
Right.
that happens through the context of a culture. The only way that those things are going to happen is, in my opinion, is if you do put those screens away and then you sit down and have that time together before you go do all the other things that families do, is to prioritize, create that culture of, hey, let's sit around the dinner table and have some intentional conversations. And I love the way that you use the word pictures of explaining those memories around a dinner table. I really, it made me think about our own dinner table.
That's cool, man. Yeah, and I think like the metaphor of fighting is really applicable when we're thinking about what it looks like to have regular meal times together. So let me just say this: there's probably some folks there in Illinois, just as there are here in Camden, who listen to my podcast, who say, "Well, Craig, I hear what you're saying, but I work shift work. I can't do that every night. So
Mm,
I don't want you to make this a hard and fast rule. The goal is as often as possible, you spend time with one another around your table. If you work third shift, it might be breakfast for you. If
mm,
there are things. So I don't want you to fall into this legalistic trap. Instead, what I want you to hear me say is that you should be fighting diligently as to be together as often as possible.
mm.
And that fight is hard. It's hard. Chad, how you have children? How old are your
Yeah.
kids?
Yeah. So I have two kids. They're both adults. I have two grandkids and then one on the way. I'm 51. Been
Man, I'm
married
so
32 years.
jealous. I mean, I'm not. I don't want my grandkids here yet. Don't get me wrong. Like oldest kid's 18. He's in
Yeah.
college, but man, I'm eager for the grandkid stage. I am.
Yeah.
That's that one. I told our church in a sermon a while back. I was like, I really need y'all to pray about giving me raises in the next decade or so, so that when my grandkids get here, I can absolutely just ruin. But no, it's fighting for that time as a family is challenging. I have four children. 18. She's a freshman in college, plays football there. I have a daughter that's a junior in high school. She plays volleyball, runs track. Have a daughter that's in eighth grade. She runs cross country and track. Have a son that's in seventh grade, cross country and baseball. Interspersed in all these other things is church engagement and other extracurriculars in their church, or excuse me, their school. That means that for us to be able to spend time around the table together, it is a fight, and not a fight, but not a fight with one another. We've got to fight to get there. That means that for us, if we're going to eat dinner together as a family, a lot of times dinner doesn't happen until 8 o'clock, and that's not really ideal for anyone.
Mm,
But we're so committed to getting that time together as a family that, if Aubrey's practicing volleyball until 7:45 and she can get home at 8 to eat dinner, man, we're just going to put the brakes on dinner. Everybody else can eat a snack or whatever they want. They can shower and get ready for bed, everything else. But we're going to fight to have that dinner time together, because it's there that our culture is really being built as a family.
right. Yeah, and that is, I believe, just one of those priorities. Again, and I really appreciate the fact that you said not to be legalistic, that it has to be 5 o'clock, or those kinds of things. It's like make it work for your family.
Yeah.
If you work shift work. I worked shift work for years. I worked second shift, so it's like we had to be really
Yeah.
scrappy.
All you had to do could do was breakfast if you work second shift, man. Second shift's tough.
It is.
Yeah.
And but you make do and you make commitments around what it is that you value.
Right.
That's really what it comes down to. That's what culture is, right? You make commitments around what you value. If you value the health of your family and you're going to fight for your family, one of the biggest things you're going to do is you're going to have to fight for time.
Yeah.
And
And I mean, Chad, what we're learning, continuing to learn now is that for us it's sacred. It really is. That sacred dinner time is rare, even among our children's friends, and so it's not difficult for us to have an extra one, two, three, four people around our table because like matter of fact, last night was an absolute nightmare for me. I mean, just it was just I sat at the dinner table. There were extra people around the table, teenagers around my table. Angela cooked dinner, and we were going to decorate. Gingerbread house. We're recording this right before Christmas, so we're going to decorate gingerbread houses afterward. And at one point last night during dinner, just so like I don't want people to have this weird idea about what happens in Craig Thompson's house. I just said, I have this dream and vision that there could be a time around this table when it's filled with intelligent conversation and things that actually matter in the world. And literally everyone around the table just looked at me like I was an idiot. And I was like, why do we have to speak about such absolute stupidity tonight? Can we not talk about something that matters? And they were like, whatever, Dad, 6'7", we're moving on with life. And I'm just like, oh, but that the value for us is that in that cultural moment or in that moment, I didn't get I mean, what I got what I wanted in that I had my kids around the table and my wife. I didn't get the conversation I wanted. I would love for us to had a deep conversation about philosophy or to discuss the intricacies of the historical struggles with Luke chapter 2. And instead, we're talking about what happened at baseball practice, and we're talking about what happened at college, and we're
Mhm.
talking about who's going to decorate the best gingerbread house. And I am just like, can I just go outside and stand in the cold because I wanted more out of this night? But it's laying the foundation and the groundwork for us to have the kind of culture that we want within our family. And like I leaned over, my son's girlfriend's there last night. I leaned over. I said, I don't know why you keep coming back here. This place is a madhouse. But what we find is that because so many teenagers and young adults don't have that kind of culture in their own home,
Mm.
they love to be in our home, in the place where phones get put away, screens
Mhm.
are put up, and we're actually just around the table and enjoying one another. It's a blessing.
One of the things that just in telling that story kind of points to some of the things that were discussed in the book, and that is pride, right? Because pride is, in essence, the example from your dinner last night. Pride would be like, can't we just have a better conversation? Where everybody else probably thought, this is a great conversation. That's what's happening to them, right?
Yeah. Oh
Pride
yeah.
wants to make it about us. It's like, why
Right.
does this conversation have to be terrible? Why can't we talk about something that matters? Let's talk about something deep or a complicated idea.
Yeah.
Let's get into what our pride says, make it about me. Whereas in that, they're probably having a great conversation. And I think that too is obviously one of the greatest offenses of the family is pride within every person. I'm reminded of this story from a friend of mine in when we lived in Georgia. And a friend of mine, he had an example. He was much older than me, but his example was he was really strained in his relationship with his son. And he himself was a thinker. He was an engineer. He went to Georgia Tech. And so he was a brilliant man, very astute in theology. He was sharp. He was an elder at the church. He was that guy. He was great. His name was Marshall. And he's talking about when his son was growing up and he and his son were becoming relationally strained, and he didn't know what to do. He was struggling because it seemed like his son had different, although they were very similar,
Mm.
they had differences that were dividing them. Now, his pride, he could have doubled down and just said, well, you need to get over here and you need to get out here with me and you need to do that. But he didn't. Instead, what Marshall did was, and this is something that it's near and dear to me, uh, and I communicate this. My kids are grown, like we talked about, but I did this to some degree when my son and daughter were growing up. It Marshall, he said, you know what, I could have had my son engage with me on my terms, but he said I realized that it was my job to be interested in what he's interested in,
Yeah.
and so what he did was, and his son was named Marshall as well, Marshall Jr. and Marshall Sr. Then they started doing things in the garage, and they started building like these little cars together, out like little go kart looking things, dune buggies, and they would do it together, and it was something that they absolutely enjoyed eventually. But that was not Marshall Sr.'s idea; it was Marshall Jr.'s.
Yeah.
And I
Yeah.
think there's something there when we want to create a good culture. It's as parents specifically, we need to be interested in what our kids are interested in.
Yeah, this is in the book, and it's something that I speak to um, young couples before they get married. It's one of the things I say regularly. that if we're going to have homes, families that are built on Christ, families that represent Christ, and that find where we can find real joy, then our house can't be the place where I come home as my castle to reign, but instead it's
Mm,
got to be the cross where I come home to die daily.
mm,
There's a pride within Craig, if I can just be honest with you, Chad. There's a pride within me that would love nothing more. When I leave here this afternoon at 5 o'clock and I head home, that when I get there, my kids are waiting for me with bated breath to get to the door. My wife has set my slippers by the door. When I walk in, they rise up and they call me blessed. And then once my wife just kisses me on the cheek, she says, "Babe, the bedroom is empty, it's clear. Go up there. I've got your chair all ready. There's a book there. I've got tea ready. The dinner will be ready in a half an hour. You go have 30 minutes of peace and quiet. Do you want the dog to come lay with you, or do you want me to keep the dog?" And the kids go, "Oh, Dad's home. Let's all be quiet because Dad's home." So I get a high five, I get a hug, and then they just kind of run to their own corners. I go and I spend 30 minutes just collecting myself, and then I come back down and there's dinner ready, and it's exactly what I want it to be, and it's the table's all set, and the kids actually show up to dinner. They're not wearing mismatched socks. They don't come to dinner, in shirts with holes in them. Like, everybody comes to dinner with like a collared shirt on, and they're just so happy. And they sit down, and then we pray, and then somebody says, "Now tell me about your day at school today." And somebody says, "Well, wow, we began To Kill a Mockingbird today in the eighth grade." And then we all have a long conversation about racism in the South, and How to Kill a Mockingbird is such a wonderful book for us to read. And then we pray and we have a devotion. Man, that'd be awesome. That has never happened in my house. Not one time. Not one time. Instead, I'm going to get home this afternoon. The dogs are going to barrel over me when I come in the door. I'm probably going to trip over someone's shoes in the garage as I go to walk in. I'm going to be tempted before I even get through the back door to be frustrated, because there's going to be somebody's junk in my way. Like, when I left this morning, I looked down and I was like, "There's a bat, there's a ball, there's cleats. Why can't we just pick our things up?" Well, in that moment, my home can be the place where I come home to be the king and they all just fall down and worship me. Or it can be the cross where I come to die daily. And I walk into that place ready to serve my family. I walk into that place ready to check my attitude at the door, to check my negative emotions at the door, and instead to say, "You know what? I've been called to love my wife as Christ loved the church. I've been called to love and lead these children as Jesus loves and leads me, with grace and patience and mercy." Do I win at that every day? No, but man, I've got to be aiming for that. And so
mm,
that does mean exactly what you say. Sometimes it's not about. As a matter of fact, it doesn't get to be about me most of the time. It's about them, and it's about looking for the ways that I connect with them.
mm.
Um, and recognizing that that shifts and changes per kid and per year, sometimes per month. Two of my kids are runners. I'm a lifter. I like to pick up heavy things and put them down. I like to go for a ruck. I like to hunt. I like I do not love to go run 3 miles. I'm not built for it, you know. I'm proud of that. But every once in a while, my my eighth grade daughter needs me to go for a run with her, and I have to say, "Baby, you got to slow down. I can't keep
Right.
up." My seventh grade son has gotten into baseball cards, and man, I ain't done baseball cards since I was a kid. It doesn't bring me any joy, but if he wants to talk to me about it, I can celebrate that with him. So
Mm.
yeah, it's finding the ways that you connect. And then, hey, here's the cool thing, and Chad, so your kids are older. A lot of it comes full circle, doesn't it? That's what's really fun for me. My oldest son called yesterday. He was like, "Hey, he hunted with me last week, and yesterday he's like, 'Hey, I want to go sight my rifle and do some stuff. Can you go?' 'No, I can't go, but you can go.' But then we got to talk about it later. I didn't get to go with him, but it comes full circle. I'm able to now they're beginning to pull back in and enjoy some of those things that matter for me, and it's fun. So
And I think all of these examples that you used are just really deposits. They're relational deposits.
100%.
And there's going to be a day where you need to make a relational withdrawal to have a serious conversation about something that really matters more than cross country
Right.
and more than hunting or lifting and running and all those kinds of things. And because you have put in all of these relational deposits, then you can make that relational withdrawal because you've proven to them that you can be trusted.
That's right.
Because
Yeah.
ultimately, if a guy comes in, and I love the castle of the cross, right? That's a very simple and yet very profound way of looking at our role as men. If you look at it as, this it's your castle. Well, you can lord over everyone there, but they actually not trust you and not actually go to you about anything that matters. They may tiptoe around you, they may avoid you, but
Right.
not necessarily trust you. But yet, if you go into it with the cross mentality of like, no, I'm here to sacrifice myself for the better of my family, right? And you do that, you prove that you're a person who can be trusted
Yeah.
because you're already making it about them.
Right.
But I think one of the main challenges of all this, right, is we're talking about individuals. We all are individuals. We all have a sin nature. We weren't raised in the 50s and 60s moral values. Our house is not Leave It to Beaver for boomers and Gen Xers who used to watch it on Nick at Night. Like we weren't like that's not our home. That's not reality. That wasn't that was makeup, right? Or that was just made up. That was television. That was theater. And yet our homes are all fertile grounds for our personal sanctification
Yeah.
because we're all sinners trying to get along. And by God's grace, we can and actually still be a family that works together.
Yeah. And Chad, I don't want to disagree with you on your own podcast, but I want to push back a little bit.
Please
Uh,
do.
yeah, because you might not have meant it the way that I heard it, but you're right in that it's not Leave It to Beaver. It's not all those other things. But
Hmm.
what I would say is that it is actually possible to have those kinds of households where there is just regular joy and wholesomeness within your home.
Hmm.
I
I
actually
agree.
had the opportunity to grow up in a house. So I'm 44 years old. My parents are both still alive. So 44 years of life, there's never been a point in time where I've ever heard my dad raise his voice to my mom. I've never heard him speak to her out in anger, call her a name in anger. I've never heard him disparage her. I've never heard her disparage him. I've never had him, curse at me, even as a grown man. There's
Wow.
never been a point in time in my life where where that's been my experience. And so, and look, I I'm trying to live up to that. And
Yeah.
so,
And what I was talking about is the fact that everything is resolved within 30 minutes. There's really
okay,
no real pressing
yeah,
issues. When dad comes home, he always knows the answer. Dad doesn't always know the answer.
I'm okay, yeah, yeah. I'm
you know,
sorry.
dinner waiting at the table when he comes home, and World
Right,
Cleaver comes home and he
yeah,
puts on his slippers, because that's the whole persona of
yeah,
what you were talking about with
yeah, yeah. Okay,
the
I'm tracking.
falsity of it.
I'm tracking. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
It's not the values of the 50s and 60s. As a matter of fact, I think that, well, I'll tell you what, I want you to talk about the fertile ground of family and how that's worked out with personal sanctification. And then I want us to take a hard right and talk about patriarchy,
Okay,
biblical patriarchy, which I think is strongly seen over the values of the 50s and 60s.
okay, we can talk about that. So, when you say that the family is fertile ground for sanctification, you're just talking about the way that we that I mean, just from a biblical perspective, that a husband is to sanctify his wife, things of that nature. Like, I'm assuming that's
Hmm.
where we're headed with this. Okay.
Hmm.
So, I mean, biblically speaking, my wife should be more godly because she's married to me.
Hmm.
Biblically speaking, I should be more godly because I'm married to her. Now, from a purely like experiential perspective, I can tell you there's nothing as sanctifying as having children. It really is.
Mm.
And for us, the most sanctifying aspect was to adopt children. Our two youngest kids are adopted. That's just part of our story. They're awesome. I get to tell my kids all the time that there's two kids that I chose and two kids I had to have. So, and so that we have fun with that as a family. But um, we that process was challenging. I write about that in the book, man. It was tough because I had these two kids that are coming into our family. They're trying to figure out if they trust us. I'm trying to, back to the dinner table. That was sacred for us, right?
Mm.
Sacred for us, and yet these two guys come in, and it's not sacred for them, and they don't know what it is to have family meal. They don't know what it is to eat what's put in front of them. They don't
Mm.
understand, and they don't trust these people, and they're survivors. And man, just
Mm.
so difficult. If you're listening to this today, there are times in your life when your home is not your sanctuary. It becomes
Mm.
the battleground for spiritual warfare. There are
Mm.
times I've been in that spot work was where I went to get relief.
Mm,
Home was the difficult place. Man,
mm,
if you're in that spot today, I just want to encourage you. God can use the difficult day to make you a better person. He can use
mm,
the difficult days to make your children better. And he can use the difficult days to minister to the world through your family. We've gotten to
mm,
experience that, right? So don't give up.
mm,
Don't give up. When I tell you that, like, I've never known my dad to scream at my mom and curse at her. I don't want you to think that I grew up in a household that never had difficulties. I grew up in a blue collar house with a dad that had to work a lot just to make ends meet when we were young. I don't curse at my wife. I don't yell at her, but that doesn't mean it's always been easy. It just means that we've chosen a different path. And in the midst of those difficulties and struggles, God's shaping and molding us, and He's giving us opportunities really as a family unit, not just as a pastor, but
mm.
as a family unit to witness to the world of the goodness of God's love toward us, and to share with
Yes.
the world the way that this same God can covenantally love others as well. And what a fun
Mm,
thing it is when we get to bring others kind of into or under the umbrella of that family unit, whether that be in a tertiary way, whatever the case, and allow them to peek behind the curtain and to say, oh, this is what it is. This is they're not perfect, but man, these people really do live this kind of life that they talk about.
yeah. Yeah. And sometimes it seems like it's too good to be true, doesn't it? It's like when you look at what the Bible promises and then you look at whether your own life or those kinds of things, and it's actually not too good to be true. You just have to do it.
Uh,
And to some degree, there's everyone, I mean, comes to their family, and you used the term earlier, family of origin. Everyone starts a family culture, but you have to make choices about, again, what you'd said earlier, what you want to let in and what you need to let go of within your own family culture.
yeah,
And yet part of that is also God working in and through us. And I say it in this way with our children, your our children are like mirrors. They reveal to us who we really are.
yeah, yeah,
And I think that's one of the difficult things because, when they're younger, some children, you can force them to do certain things and they may go do it. But eventually you can't force them. You have to change the way you
yeah,
talk to them
yeah,
to influence them, to motivate them. And to some degree, every parent moves into like a coaching kind of
yeah,
feel of like not ordering people around. But I believe if you've, used the cross mentality, like you talked about a few minutes ago, Craig, it's like you have that. You've been proven that you can be trusted. So that means when you get into that more, you're just giving advice as your kids get older, then they can trust your
mm,
voice because it's been proven
yeah.
because of the cross.
And I shipped my first one off to college this year, so we're in that different phase with him. And if all of my kids do 4 year college, I'll have a kid in college for the next 10 years, and it's just
Sounds
unbelievably
easy for
expensive.
for
Uh,
me saying that to you.
right? Yeah. Well, at least you can get it over with, But um, uh, and so you do shift, and so like the way that I interact now with my seventh grader versus the way I interact with my college freshman is very different. Still very the same in some ways, but very different. And like you say, it's coming alongside as a counselor, as a guide, and a whole lot of asking a lot of questions, because
Mm,
I'm trying to help him find his path. um, I still want to be able to speak into it, and but the fact of the matter is, I only get to speak into it when he allows me to.
mm,
But he continues to allow us to be a part of his life because he sees value in the relationship he has with his mom and his dad right now, and I'm very grateful for that. And look, you said it's not too good to be true. I'm a journaler, Chad. I love to write in my journal, and recently I just wrote. I don't remember the whole thing, but you're right. It's not too good to be true. But man, I am nowhere near good enough to deserve it. That's
mm,
that's what I'm just really convinced of lately. I'm
mm,
nowhere near deserving of the blessing that God gives in
mm,
allowing me to be a father and a husband.
Mm,
I mean, what a privilege, man.
mm.
I don't want to waste that. I don't want to waste that. So, anyway, you want to talk about patriarchy?
I do, because you even with your son and saying, you're giving advice and counsel and asking questions so he, direct him so he stays on the path that ultimately that God wants
Yeah.
him to be on, that he would be obedient and walk in that, even if it's a different path than you're on or you've ever seen. It's like God has laid out a path for him with his giftedness, his talents, and all of those things that he's supposed to steward forward in the kingdom of God. Right. But yet, what's presented to an 18-year-old are multiple paths,
Oh yeah. Yeah.
and even some words that are strongly uh like biblically based words like patriarchy have been co-opted by the enemy to make it mean something that it's not. So how have you navigated that with your 18-year-old son of like going in? I'm sure he's connected. If he's in college, he's getting connected socially. Even if you kept him away from all social media until now, he's being inundated with all sorts of paths. But how is it that you're trying to help him to even understand what can be complicated or convoluted words like patriarchy
Hmm.
in a biblical sense so that he can become the man that honors God and then brings value to his family in the future?
And I'm laughing because this is a regular part of the conversation in our home,
Hmm.
but not exclusively with my 18-year-old son, with my girls.
Mm.
So my girls are 13 and 16, and when we think about, I think a word like patriarchy, patriarchal structures. Uh, it's almost not worth using the words anymore, and it's better usually to talk about the ideas because they have been co-opted and convoluted, maybe even polluted at sometimes. Um, you know,
I agree with that.
we think about male leadership, especially
Hmm.
in the home. One thing I want to make sure I point out. I say this in the book. We talk about men leading in the home. Paul doesn't talk about men leading in the home, right? Paul says, "Husbands, love your wives as Christ loved the church," right? He didn't say, "Husbands, lead your wives, love them." Now, there's a leadership component that comes with the love, but we don't lead and then love. We love, and then out of that love, we lead. I'm not leading for the purpose of domineering, right? I'm loving her, and in my love and in the love for my family, for my children, I'm leading them out of that. So, but this has been, we weave this into our family from the time our children are born. And so, all the way back when my oldest is, just 4 years old or so, and I'm leaving to go out of town for something, I'm talking with him about his responsibility to take care of the girls and mom and the girls. How do you take care of mom and the girls? Well, when you're 4 years old, you take care of mom by being a listener. That's the best thing you can do it for. As long as you listen to mom, you take care of her. And when you take care of her, you honor me. So if you want to, you take care of mom. I can't be here to take care of mom, so you take care of mom. And so we're investing in them the idea, the understanding that caring for others is just a responsibility, and that responsibility is going to shift and change over time. We in our home right now, my girls are actually they love to run around and advocate for the patriarchy pretty regularly. They'll just say bring back the patriarchy, but this is their like this is where they are on it. It's like if patriarchy means that I can find a husband that wants to support and provide for me, that will take out the trash and that will just allow me to cook and clean, and he'll do everything else. It's like, hey, I'll take that. Obviously, that's a really simplistic understanding,
Hmm.
and it's a joking thing for us around the house, um, but it's not a joke to recognize that as men we have a responsibility to care for our wives and our families. And so training my boys begins early at 4 years old. You take care of mom by listening. It continues to grow. We have a lot of boy jobs around the house, and the girls get to point out that there are boy jobs that they have to do. It's funny. I've noticed this recently. We have a lot of boy jobs. We don't have any girl jobs, right? Seems like all the jobs that the girls do, we have to do as well. But boy jobs are things like taking out the trash and stuff like that. We're just looking at them saying, "Hey, girls, y'all don't have to do this. We're going to take care of these things. This is not a job that you've got to do. Scraping roadkill up, that's a boy job. Whatever the case may be, Um, uh,
How did you determine those? And I agree with this, so I'm not looking to push back on this, but
yeah,
we are definitely bumping up against traditional
yeah,
masculine and feminine roles by which there will be people who listen to this podcast who need clarification and just like, what does this mean? Because the wheels are starting to come off. Let's put the let's
I
tighten
don't,
those lug nuts up real quick.
honest and true. And what is it? And this is, you guys can do with it as you will, right?
Yeah.
For me, I don't ever want my wife to have to do a job she doesn't want to do. Okay, if I can help it, right? And so, um, that may be taking the trash out. Maybe it's balancing our checkbook, or managing our finances, paying our taxes. Like, I don't want, I want her to have the freedom to be a wife and a mom, period. Now, she's a stud, right? She's a worker, like, and every, like, there's, I don't want anybody to hear this and hear her as being, too good for any of that. I promise you, if I get hit by a bus tomorrow, that house will not skip a beat once they finish grieving my absence.
Mhm.
She's awesome. I just don't want her to have to. And so as long as I'm there, she doesn't have to pick up heavy things. As long as I'm there, she doesn't have to do gross things, right? Now that also doesn't mean that I say you better clean the kitchen or something like that. Cooking in our home is a family job. That's what I say. We have a lot of boy jobs. We don't have any girl jobs. It's funny how the boy jobs are take out the garbage, but the everybody's jobs is to empty the dishwasher and things like that. So it's really more just about how do we as men step in the path for the girls, the women, the ladies in our lives, and to take some burden off of them. And it also means just protecting them. If somebody's going to take a bullet in my family, it's going to be me and not my wife. If somebody's going to hit by a car, it's going to be me and not my wife, and certainly not my children. So the only idea of leadership, the place that I want leadership to be thought of first and foremost, just means, man, I'm out front so that if somebody's putting, giving fire toward my family, that I'm the one running toward the fire so that they can be safe and cared for. So, we think about the patriarchy. We got to be careful because it's just laden with all kind of um, just landmines at this point in time. But I think the biblical picture of godly husbands, godly fathers, is I am doing everything I can to bear the cross for my family so that my wife, for instance, only, like, she doesn't have to do those things on her own. Like, what was, I mean, we talk about Eve's sin. What was Adam's sin? You recognize Adam was there.
Right. Passivity.
Adam
I
was
mean,
there.
it's in that you see in all of
Yeah.
the roles. I mean, if you look at what's going on in the world today, you go all the way back to Genesis 3 and you can see it lived out over and over and over
Right.
again. It's happening on an individual basis, it's happening in homes, it's happening on social media. I mean, the same thing is just recurring.
Right. Yeah.
Like a
So,
dog returns to its vomit kind of thing.
right.
It's just like, are
100%.
you kidding me? It's just is the same thing and we're shocked
Yep.
again.
Yeah. Oh,
So,
didn't
okay,
see that
you've
coming.
talked about the perspective of, I don't know, you didn't use the word federal headship. And I know that you're complementarian and we may not have time to unpack all of what that means. But you've talked about the husband side of it, right? Not viewing themselves as the leader in the home. And I'm like, and you drew that out. I understand why you choose loving because that's what Paul said in Ephesians 5. I get that.
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
Um,
Kind of a thing. We
but
should be biblical when we can.
but yet the wife's role with the husband is what?
It's
Submission. Submitting to what?
submitting to his loving leadership. And so,
Okay.
I think we have to be careful. A lot of people, since we have a video here, a
Yeah.
lot of people like to think about sort of leadership and submission. So it's like on top, right? I'm the husband. I'm leading over this wife. But the Bible, like, God creates men and women in equality, equality of persons, difference in roles. Excuse me. And so my role in the home is loving leadership. But again, like, uh, you may Chad, you may be able to point out to me where it says that my role is lead, but over and over and over again it's love, right? Now, but the wife is to submit to her husband. So what happens is we take that submission and we go, well, if she is to submit, then he better lead. Well, why? Why do I have to take this biblical word submission and create an unbiblical word to partner with this biblical word. Like sometimes that's just because my desire is to create this balance that seems to make good sense in my brain, instead of looking at it and saying, I'm just going to take God at his word. I mean, like if we think about a soteriological perspective, sovereignty and free will, like where do the two come together? Election versus free will, all these other things. Well, we try to create this perfect system, but I'm just going to take God at his word. And when God says whomsoever will, then whomsoever will. When God says those whom elect, I'm going to preach that passage. If God's word says love and submit, right, then my responsibility is to love her first. Her responsibility is to submit to me. If we want to use the word responsibility, is to submit to me, submit to my love and my leadership in the home. But it's love. So here's what I find. I find that when a man is willing to sacrifice himself for his family regularly, a wife is willing to serve him regularly. And
Right.
it,
Because it says in Ephesians 5 specifically that the primary needs of a man are respect and the primary needs of a woman is love. Not to say that men don't need to be loved, that husbands don't need to be loved, but it's like it's the love and respect aspect of that too, of when you are doing all the things that you say that you're doing for your wife, she's going to show you the respect that you deeply need, and then when you're showing her, when you're doing all these things, you're proving to her that you love her. So by willingness to give of yourself, to give of your time, to put your own interest aside, to make sure that she's cared for and provided for, and she's protected, then you're in a scenario to where you're you're gonna have the esteem of respect because you are sacrificially loving her, like Paul said that we should be loving our wives like he loved the church, which
but,
of course
but what if
is
you don't get the
sacrificially.
respect? What if you don't get the respect?
Well, we still show the love. It's not on a condition.
Yeah. And
Like I,
make sure we're clear on that. Yeah. The
but
responsibility,
it's the
yeah, the
it
reciprocal nature.
it is, and even in the book Love and Respect, I love how they talk about the energizing cycle is
Yeah.
when the
Yeah.
husband shows love and the wife shows respect. That's the energizing cycle. And I don't know if it's the crazy cycle, what they say, when one of those is off, then your marriage starts to be off. But it doesn't mean, if I'm not feeling quote unquote respected, right? If that doesn't mean that I stop loving her, because it's not on condition of what I get.
And
It's on a condition to some, because I'm submitted to God.
yeah, and that's why I really want to emphasize the love aspect as opposed to leadership, because when it's leadership, right, and I don't feel respected, then my leadership can take an edge.
Right.
I begin to lead in a domineering way because I can
Right.
pervert that word. It's difficult for me to pervert the word love. If God is love, if God showed his love for us by sending Christ, by dying for our sin, if that's what love is, then even when I don't feel respected, which can happen, right?
Mm,
Maybe it happens because your wife has a bad day. Maybe it happens because you're having a bad day and you're just not hearing her properly.
mm.
I don't get to pervert love from a biblical perspective. Like it is a thing. But Chad, sometimes we talk about these things and we talk about them without concrete examples, and without concrete examples, they can sometimes be a little more challenging for folks. So,
Mm,
we think about leadership, if you want to use that word, and submission in the home. Um, it's not exclusively on big things. Like a lot of times it's on small things. And even for women who wrestle with this idea, I usually am able to look at a woman, especially a wife, and I say, hey, how would you love it if your husband called you, tomorrow morning? He said, you know what, babe, for dinner we don't have plans. It would thrill my soul if we could just have chicken, salad and a baked potato tonight. How would you like that? And almost without fail, everyone I've ever said that would be amazing.
mm.
That would be amazing. Well, why? What? That's just a decision I don't have to make in my life. I don't want to make another decision. As husbands, like, what do we say? Oh, I don't care what we have. Just I'll eat whatever she cooks, and we mean it, right? Like 90% of the time. Like if she's willing to cook for me, I'll eat whatever. Here's what we
Amen.
miss: we miss that our wives are really desirous of us to make some decisions, not because they're incapable. right? But because they are inundated with so many decisions every single day.
Mm.
And if we're willing to take on the responsibility of making a small decision, they are almost always willing to you ready? Submit to that leadership in the home because it's just a decision. And here's what she gets to say. She gets to say, I know how I can satisfy my husband tonight. I know how I can make him happy. I don't have to wonder if he'll be happy today. I
Mm.
know that if I do this, that he's going to say, sweet, I am going to get the opportunity to be a Proverbs 31 woman because my husband is going to rise up and call me blessed.
Mm.
He told me how to do it. He gave me the cheat code. And so when we think about it in that context, in those simple ways, a lot of times it's easier for us to internalize what this submission, this love or leadership looks like in the home. It's not about saying you do this or else. No, it's like, hey, babe, I would love it if we could work in this way. And 90% of the
Absolutely.
time, it's like, that's awesome. Thank you.
Yeah.
Yes, I would love to do that. And ladies, if you want your husband to lead that way, let me tell you how you get there. When he does call you and say, or the night before he says, man, I'd love it if we had chicken tomorrow. If you think you're going to vomit in your mouth, eat chicken tomorrow, right? You find a way to say, you know what, I think we can do that. Because what you're going to do is you're going to train him up. You said that husbands need respect. We crave it, man. We just love attention. We are just affirmation hogs. And when he does that and you respond by going, I think that's a great, let me do that. I think we can make that happen. Good job. You know what you're going to do? You're training him like Pavlov's little dog, right? You just rewarded his effort. And
Mm.
so he's going to do it again. And you're going to begin to see that as y'all work together in this context, over time, that's going to shift into a relationship where it's going to be, hey, I would like this. What do you think? And then your response is going to be, hey, we had chicken last week, but how about if we had pork and I'll do all the other things you wanted? It's a win-win for everybody. And we begin in small ways, and then we grow into larger things where, husbands just taking the lead in other areas, not because our wives can't, but so that they don't have to, so that they get to serve in the other capacities that God's given to them.
Yeah, right on. Yeah, I think that becomes really kind of what we're made for, and also they're made for. They being females, particularly, and husbands and wives, and how we go together and complement one another. And I think the issue becomes when we start competing in the same spaces, and competing, treating gender as if it makes no difference, as if God just he didn't mean anything when he made gender, right? Made husbands and wives, men and women, male, female. He's like, no, he just made humans, and you got to just figure it out. I mean, that's chaos in every sense, and yet taking this into account again all the way back to Genesis. And I love how Elizabeth Elliot talks about this, and I think her book is called The Mark of a Man. It's a book that she wrote to her nephew many years ago, and it's really interesting because and this is a paraphrase. Hopefully, I get it close. That she says masculinity is about initiation, femininity is about receptivity.
Hmm.
So it's like the initiative, right? That's what leadership is. It's the initiative. It's everything within the masculine frame, if you will, is wanting to use our energy, our agency, use our power, not to dominate, but to cultivate a healthy culture within a family. That's ultimately what God wants us to do. And you didn't use those words, but this is kind of like what was in my head. In all of the things that you kind of empowered the husband to do for the family and for his wife, it cultivates a healthy culture because you're showing them over and over and over, hey, I'm willing to take the initiative to do what's hard so we can cultivate what's best.
Yeah, absolutely. Taking the initiative and taking the bullet. I'm willing to take it all, right?
That's right.
I'm willing to run ahead. I will carry the load if you'll come with me. And it's incredible how when men are willing to do that, 90% of the time, man, especially Christian women, they're more than happy to chase after that. Because why? Because man, somebody else is plowing ahead. let me be this. I aggravate my wife all the time. I say, baby, what do you? You're too spoiled. What you're just like a passenger princess. What do we have with this? But she's a capable, intelligent, educated woman, and she is thrilled to death every once in a while turn her brain off and just let me run the show. Why? Because she's been keeping all these things, and this is what sometimes we don't appreciate is that we have all these things running in our brain, and our wives are just like, man, I will absolutely and gladly manage that for you, follow after you if you will just take the lead. It's such a wonderful
Mhm.
blessing for
It
them
is.
and for us.
Yeah. And the thing that I found in my own marriage and all of these years, and again, we came into it. I was an unbeliever when we first got married. So we went into our marriage with all kinds of issues, all kinds of brokenness in our backstory. But as we submitted ourselves to Christ and we aligned ourselves under what the Bible says is right and true, and we started living out these principles, things change. Hearts change. Our hearts
Yeah.
change towards one another. What we're willing to do for one another changes. It's less about us, meaning individuals, and more about us as a couple. And then as you have children, then it just grows. And I believe that that's just one of the beautiful things that God does in a home where the people, primarily husband and wife, or if you're just raising children, are submitted to God and doing what is that
And
God says is best.
and Chad, we really shouldn't talk about leadership, husbands loving leadership in the home, and a wife's submission without introducing children into that conversation. A big part of the reason that men are initiating and leading in these ways is so that we free our wives up to do what they do better, which is to be moms. That they're able to be more intimate with our kids, and as long as I can take care of some of those things off of her plate, then she's able to be that mom in a way that my kids need me in different ways than they need their mom, and when I take that for her, then she gets to be that a little bit better.
Yeah, absolutely. The nurturing side of
Yep.
that God has just put in females that is
Right.
just not
Different,
in
Like,
males.
rub dirt in it, and mom's like, "Hey, come here, baby. Let me see what's going on." So
You're like, no, you're fine. Get up, get up.
that's
You're
right.
fine.
Yeah, it's not broken. Oh,
Yeah.
there's a bone. Yeah, it's bad.
Go rinse it off with the hose. You'll be fine.
That's right. There's a water hose down here, man. Y'all just do a plain hose up there, but we have the hose pipe. The hose pipe.
uh,
You need to double
s-
down. So,
exactly.
yeah.
So I have just a couple things to say. One of which I want to say is go dogs. I have to say that at the close of this. I don't know who you root for. If you root for any teams, I'm sure it's SEC. Maybe it's the Gamecocks. I don't know.
Man.
But maybe Clemson. You're close to Clemson too.
Yeah, I'm a Carolina fan, and
Okay.
yeah, it's been tough to be a Gamecock fan.
It has been. I
It,
mean, since Spurrier was there, right?
yeah,
Like
it's
those
tough.
rear.
Yeah, it's rough to think that you got one of the best quarterbacks in the country and you still can't win football games. I mean, how bad can you be? I mean, honestly.
Yeah, we certainly don't.
Yeah.
Georgia
Oh,
does not, but
yeah.
we get by. We got a good team.
Gritty, gritty.
Yeah, 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 yeah. Absolutely. So I want to just end with this question: how can people who are listening to this? How can they connect with you more deeply? How
Yeah,
can they connect with your work? How can they find your other books because you've written on other topics? And
yeah,
maybe they just want to continue some of these conversations at home by picking up a book of their own. How
yeah.
would they get
Well,
that?
so the book is called "Fighting for Your Family," and you can pick it up on Amazon. Um, if they, I don't know who listens to your podcast. If you got pastors or something, anybody's looking for like church copies and stuff like that, we can do some bulk pricing for churches. So you can buy it there. You can learn more about me. My website, it's makeitordinary.org. And that's the podcast is called the Ordinary Christian Podcast. The other books, I've got two Christmas books. One that's on Christ in the Old Testament. It's called Vintage Christmas. A little late in the season, probably for you to do that. But 25 devotions from the Old Testament that point to Christ. I did another one. It's kind of the first book we did a few years ago on just family devotions, a Christmas book for family devotions. One of the things we've done recently I'm just going to co-opt your podcast to do a commercial here. One of the things we've
Please
done
do.
recently, man, I'm going to tell you what, we're so proud of it. I wish I'd grabbed one. I could hold it up on air. They're way back there behind me in the screen. But we created some journals. It's just called an ordinary journal, and you can find it on Amazon.com. On Amazon, you got to find me as Dr. Craig Thompson because there's this other Craig Thompson guy that's a science fiction writer, and you put Craig Thompson, it gets all confusing. But they're ordinary journals. I think they're $7.99 a piece. They're cheap. I created them with my seventh grade son in mind.
Mm.
How do we create a journal that a seventh grader can use, right? It incorporates some of the fitness things and sort of overall health that I talk about in the book that you read. So I've got a whole chapter in Fighting for Your Family on spiritual warfare in your body and what's it look like for us to fight for our physical wellness. So that's incorporated in there. We call it Seven Strong. But that's man, that's something that we wrote it with a seventh grader in mind. I've got adult women and men that are just absolutely loving it, which
Right
caught us
on.
a little bit by surprise. So you can get it in, I think there's six different colors. They're super cheap. For now, we're gonna have to go up on the price because I think we're losing money on them, honestly. But we're gonna keep them as cheap as we can possibly keep them because we just think it's so valuable to get somebody in the Word. So basically, it's a place to write down what you read, write a portion of what you read. What did it mean to you? What did it mean to its original readers? And then a place to record prayers and praises. And then it shifts a little bit each day so that we don't get into kind of a monotony. So we record different kinds of prayers and praises. And then, one of the things we're loving for our teenagers is just today, how do I feel? And we've given them 50 words to describe, help them to verbalize their emotions. So
Mm.
that's something we're really excited about what we've been able to do here through Ordinary, and pretty motivated about that. So I'd love for you to pick one of those up. Like I say, grab it at our cost because we are going in the hole on them right now. But they are a real cool resource that turned out way better than I anticipated. So yeah, that's where I've got the podcast and the other blogs and other things at my website, sermons and stuff like that. So I'd love for you guys to be a part of it. Thank you so much, Chad, for having me on this podcast today. It's a real joy, and I'm so incredibly encouraged by what you're doing, trying to really just minister to men in particular.
Yeah. Amen. Thank you for that. And hey, you said throw you a curveball. So
Oh, here it comes. Let's go.
no, no, no. Everything in there was a curveball
Oh,
because none of your sample questions, none of them were used. So,
hey, look at
so
that.
you have
Yeah.
that.
How about that?
But hope you can hit a curve. Hey, I really appreciate our time together, and I appreciate you writing the book. It's going to help a lot of families, a lot of men, a lot of wives, and apparently your other work is also going to help just all kinds of people to get fit by being in the Word and also fit in their body. So that is something you're passionate about. I am too. That could be a whole other podcast that we
My
would have
next
to get
book,
into.
man. That's my next book. Bibles, books, barbells, and black coffee. So we'll
Hey, that's what I'm talking about.
think the things that shape a man. So we've already
Yeah,
started.
yeah.
I'm looking forward to it.
Well, hit me up. We'll have another great conversation, no doubt.
That'd be awesome. Thank you, Chad.
Craig Thompson, thank you so much for coming on the show today.